Today's show is brought to you by the CW's Superman and Lois. Does Amazon's Lord of the Rings series need a new title? Now everybody knows there was one ring to rule them all, but should one title encompass everything pertaining to Middle-earth? Not if you ask Frodo Baggins himself. In an interview with Empire, which we spotted via Joe Blow and Slash Film, Elijah Wood weighed in on Amazon's upcoming Lord of the Rings series, and he has a major issue with it. Not its lack of boiled mash or stewed potatoes, or the fact that it won't be a Baby's Day Out style adventure following young Aragorn, rather something else entirely. So what is it?
Alright then, keep your secrets.
Alright, fine, we'll tell you. Elijah Wood took issue with the series' name, specifically its use of the Lord of the Rings nomenclature in its title, which he finds to be misleading. In case you need further proof that Elijah Wood is one of us, i.e. a huge nerd, and not just a filthy Baggins trying to keep Precious all to himself, listen to what he actually had to say on the matter. I find it bizarre that they're calling it Lord of the Rings as a shorthand because it's not Lord of the Rings. It takes place in the Second Age of Middle-earth. I am fascinated by what they're doing with the show. They're calling it the Lord of the Rings, but I think that's slightly misleading. From what I understand, the material they are working on exists chronologically further back in history and lore of Lord of the Rings or Middle-earth than any characters represented in Lord of the Rings. It sounds more Silmarillion era. Not to get nerdy, but it's the Second Age of Middle-earth. And Elijah Wood is right. Just as one does not simply walk into Mordor, one does not simply call anything set in Middle-earth the Lord of the Rings, especially if it's in an era where the Rings of Power have yet to be forged or are in the process of being forged. What's particularly interesting, though, is Wood's mention of the series existing further back in history than any characters represented in Lord of the Rings. So the question then becomes, does Elijah Wood have some sort of secret insider knowledge of exactly what's happening on the show? Well, probably not. But he is right to point out that the chronology of what's going to happen on the show is awfully far removed from what we know from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. As we reported previously, Amazon's Lord of the Rings series is firmly set in the Second Age of Middle-earth. It takes place thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. When we first reported about the Lord of the Rings series synopsis and setting, many people took umbrage with a specific phrase. The greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover the world in darkness. And like Uruk-hai emerging from the muck and the mire of the comment section, they spoke with one voice to utter the name Morgoth. Well, if Elijah Wood actually does know something we don't, then it looks like Morgoth's back on the menu, boys! For those who don't know, long before there was Sauron, there was another darker, eviler lord named Morgoth, and Morgoth was the strongest of the Ainur, the powerful primordial beings created by Eru Ilúvatar, the supreme being that created the world. But one day Morgoth woke up and chose violence. He rebelled against his creator and became the source of almost all evil in the world as we know it. Eventually, though, he was defeated and cast through the Door of Night into the Timeless Void, which is conveniently what I also referred to as 2020. However, this part of the series synopsis does give us a bit of pause. Beginning in a time of relative peace, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters both familiar and new as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth. That specific phrase about the re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth has us thinking that rather than Morgoth coming back from the Timeless Void, this series will focus on Sauron's rise to power as the second Dark Lord of Middle-earth. Plus, as we mentioned last time, we know that Sauron plays a major role in the downfall of the island kingdom of Numenor, which will factor into this series, so it feels like a missed opportunity not to see that play out over the course of several seasons. Besides, Sauron also convinces the Numenorians to worship Morgoth as a god, so you will get your Morgoth fix as well, in one form or another. It's also worth noting that Amazon only has the rights to the Second Age as it appears in The Lord of the Rings, which means that while Elijah Wood is correct, the Second Age appears in the Silmarillion, mentions of the Silmarillion and the Atlas of Middle-earth, things like that, are seemingly off limits for the time being. That said, things like the rise and fall of Numenor don't exactly fall under the Lord of the Rings section of Tolkien's myth, so it's definitely confusing. Okay, so back to the matter at hand. Should Amazon rename their Lord of the Rings series? Because I'm torn. Look, Elijah Wood makes a great point, but on the other hand, the Second Age of Middle-earth is kind of a crappy title. Maybe they'll call it like the Lord of the Rings, the Second Age, or something like that. You have to imagine Amazon, if they bought the rights to this, they want to capitalize on the name recognition that Lord of the Rings has. And only time will tell what they go with, hopefully not thousands of years worth of time, but time nonetheless. Regardless, we will keep you up to date on all things LOTR over on Nerdist.com, including when they finally do land on an official title. Thanks again to the CW Superman and Lois for sponsoring today's show. On February 23rd, see the Man of Steel and Metropolis's top journalist like you've never seen them before, struggling to stay afloat as parents in the modern world. Experience the latest epic entry in the Arrowverse in a supersized 2-hour premiere event on Tuesday, February 23rd at 8/7 Central on the CW, or stream free the next day on the CW app. Thank you so much for watching today's show. In the meantime, folks, please tell us, do you agree with Elijah Wood? What do you want to see from a Lord of the Rings series? Let's discuss in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.